Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into it, looking at the incredibly complex journey of Vladimir Putin. He's a figure who's, well, undeniably shaped our world for decades now. For this deep dive, we're drawing on excerpts from name.pdf. And our goal really is to pull out the most crucial insights, the key facts from this material. Think of it like a shortcut, to get a solid grasp on a leader who's dominated headlines for so long. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin's early life and those formative years in the KGB. He was born October 7th, 1952, in Leningrad, what's now St. Petersburg, of course. Grew up in a pretty modest Soviet household. The sources say he was interested in things like martial arts, discipline, pretty early on. But that core ambition, it led him straight to the KGB. The Soviet Union's really powerful intelligence agency. He actually served in East Germany during the Cold War, and that's where the material suggests he learned the art of strategy, silence, and survival. More than just survival, though, right? This training, it seems, it really ingrained a deep sense of information control, subtle influence, maybe laying down a blueprint for how he'd later approach governing.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it, that KGB background? You really have to consider how it might have just profoundly shaped his whole approach to power later on. Being immersed in East Germany during the Cold War, that's a world of intense geopolitical tension, covert ops everywhere. It wasn't just about gathering intelligence, was it? It's probably also about understanding how state security could function as an internal political tool, potentially stifling civil society right from the get-go. That kind of experience, it undoubtedly instills a certain worldview, centered on strategic moves, maybe a deep-seated distrust of outside influences. That seems to pop up again and again in his later actions.
Right. And it's from that really rigorous, kind of secretive background that his political rise seems, well, frankly, astonishingly quick. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Putin moves into politics. Starts off fairly low-key, a city administrator role. But what jumps out from the sources is just how fast he climbed under President Boris Yeltsin. Almost meteoric, you could say. 1999, Yeltsin, kind of out of the blue, appoints him prime minister.
Unexpectedly, yeah.
Then just a few months pass, and boom, acting president. And then, 2000, he's officially elected president of Russia. That moment, that's really the start, isn't it? The beginning of the Putin era.
It is quite telling, the incredibly swift rise from this, relatively obscure intelligence background right to the very top. It raises the question, though, doesn't it? What factors actually helped that happen so fast? You have to remember the context. Russia in the 90s was chaotic, post-Soviet chaos. The powerful elites, they were likely looking for anyone who could project stability, project order. Someone seen as competent, enough to steady the ship, but maybe also someone they thought they could control. His quiet, disciplined style, so different from the, sometimes flamboyant figures of the Yeltsin years.
Yeah.
Maybe that made him look like a pragmatic choice. A fresh face promising both continuity and decisive action when Russia really felt uncertain.
Okay, so he gets firmly into power, and then he moves pretty decisively to reshape Russia, bringing in what a lot of people call the Putin doctrine, power, patriotism, and control. And the core elements seem really clear in the sources. Centralizing power is a big one, systematically silencing dissent, and very overtly reviving national pride. The sources talk about his new form of leadership, this potent mix of nationalism, military strength, and strategic influence. And you get really different views on this, right? Some praised him, saw him as a protector of Russian sovereignty, bringing stability after the mess of the 90s.
Which was genuinely felt by many.
Absolutely. But then others, they heavily criticized the crackdowns. On opposition figures, on the media, on democratic institutions generally. You see this with tactics like his vertical of power strategy, getting rid of direct regional elections, consolidating control over big industries through state companies, and those controversial laws too, targeting undesirable organizations and foreign agents, basically squeezing independent voices.
Yeah, strangling them effectively.
And then there's that famous quote, it really captures a certain feeling. Whoever does not miss the Soviet Union has no heart. Whoever wants it back has no brain.
That quote is revealing. And this blend of nationalism and military strength, what's really insightful is how deeply it connects with certain historical currents within Russia itself. Russia's history often involves this idea of being a great power, needing a strong central hand, to manage its huge territory and defend against what it sees as outside threats. So this doctrine, it effectively tapped into a longing for that strength, that influence, especially after the perceived disorder of the 1990s. And the quote itself, it's nuanced, isn't it? The heart part acknowledges that real nostalgia many Russians might feel for a time of stability, order, global respect, especially after the humiliations as they saw it of the post-Soviet years. But then no brain part That signals a kind of pragmatic realism, an understanding that the old Soviet system, well, it's not desirable and it's not realistically coming back.
Yeah.
It speaks to wanting a powerful, respected Russia, yes, but one adapted to today's world, not just a literal return to a system that ultimately failed.
Right. And that mix of power and patriotism, it definitely didn't just stay within Russia's borders. It showed up big time on the international stage. Under Putin, Russia started taking a much more assertive stance globally. You see it with key events, right? Like the 2014 annexation of Crimea. The sources note that triggered global condemnation, a huge moment.
A turning point for many.
Then there's Russia getting heavily involved in Syria's war. That boosted his influence in the Middle East, as the sources put it.
Right.
And of course, the widespread accusations of election interference in Western democracies, that caused a lot of friction.
Still does.
And then 2022. The full-scale invasion of Ukraine. That shocked the world, no question, and escalated into one of modern Europe's largest conflicts. Across all these events, you really see his international image shift, don't you? From just strongman to something more like global disruptor.
Absolutely. And the real impact, the so what of these actions, is how they collectively reshaped Russia's place in the world, especially its relationship with the West. Crimea wasn't just condemned. It fundamentally challenged those post-Cold War rules about borders, leading directly to major sanctions. Syria showed Russia was willing and able to project military power far beyond its neighborhood. And it gave them a significant strategic foothold in a really critical region. The election interference accusations. That highlighted this new kind of asymmetric conflict, in the digital age. And Ukraine. It hasn't just shocked people, it's fundamentally changed the security setup in Europe. For many, it really did revive those old Cold War fears. So each action built on the last, contributing to that shifting image in Russia's geopolitical stance. He became someone clearly willing to challenge the existing international order, its rules, its principles.
Yeah. And with that more disruptive global role came a lot of criticism. Domestically, internationally, especially around issues of control and just how long he stayed in power, the accusations are pretty stark, and they keep coming up. Crushing free speech, the alleged poisoning and jailing of political opponents, manipulating elections, and, crucially, changing the Constitution specifically to extend his own power, allowing him potentially to stay in office until, 2036?
That's the potential, yes.
Yeah, and this is the big paradox the sources point to. Despite sanctions and global criticism, he remains immensely popular among many Russians. They see him as a symbol of stability and strength. How does that work?
It's a fascinating disconnect, isn't it, between that global criticism and the significant domestic support. Well, if you think about the broader picture, for many Russians, the memory of the 1990s is still incredibly vivid. Economic hardship, political chaos, a feeling of lost national pride. Putin's leadership, whatever the criticisms, has been very skillfully linked to a period of relative stability, some economic recovery, and crucially, a restored sense of national identity and global standing. The genius, if you want to call it that, of his domestic narrative isn't just about controlling the media, though that's part of it. It's about reframing historical grievances, especially that perceived humiliation of the 90s, into a kind of renewed national purpose. For many people, stability isn't just something they want. It becomes almost a moral imperative. And he becomes the symbol of that strength needed to guarantee it. So that narrative, constantly reinforced by state media, leads many to see him as, well, a necessary leader, an effective leader, that symbol of stability and strength, even with all those serious accusations swirling around.
Right. So when you step back and look at his overall legacy, his impact, it's undeniable. It's profound. Whether people admire him or, frankly, revile him, the sources consistently point to these key legacies. He fundamentally reshaped modern Russia, no question there. He consistently challenged Western dominance on the world stage. He has, for many people, certainly revived those Cold War anxieties. And he's built a legacy. No, it's one that's going to be debated, analyzed, picked apart for decades, probably longer.
Indeed. Vladimir Putin's journey from that KGB operative to this dominant global figure, it really is a powerful case study. It shows that complex mix of personal history, national identity, and just the relentless pressures of geopolitics. His influence on Russia's path and on the world stage is just undeniable. He's a figure who forces us all, really, to confront some uncomfortable truths about power, about leadership, and about the shifting balance in international relations.
And maybe that brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to sort of chew on. Understanding leaders like Vladimir Putin, it isn't just about memorizing facts from their biography or listing dates they were in office. It's really about recognizing that complex web. Personal history, yes, but also a nation's identity, its grievances, its hopes, and these huge, sometimes invisible global forces that are constantly shaping the world we all live in. So as you think about his actions, maybe ask yourself, how do figures like Putin continue to challenge our basic assumptions about international relations, about the balance of power here in the 21st century? What new dynamics are emerging because of the decisions he's made? And how might those ripples affect all of us in the future?